Hi everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, and on the screen you can see Matt
Hey, what's up?
and Connor.
Hey everyone.
Now, these guys are going to talk about Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 10, the season finale. It's called The Winds of Winter, and it is directed by Miguel Sapochnik. I don't usually tell you the director, I just wanted to say Sapochnik.
Is that the same guy who directed last week's?
Yeah.
They do it in pairs,
Yeah.
but I didn't notice
Yep.
the name last week. I noticed the name this week, and I wanted to say it. Sapochnik.
Good job, Pete.
It's good because I wanted to just say the direction was really good again, and after
Yeah.
obviously we mentioned that a lot last week, it's not surprising to hear that it's the same guy.
Nope.
Alright, well, I'm going to leave you guys to it, so off you go. Talk about Game of Thrones for the next 2 hours.
Yeah. It's a meaty one. If we thought last week's episode 9 was full of moments, they were just laying and waiting.
Yeah,
'Cause yes-
nine was all the action. This was
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah, this was the Lord of the Rings again. To bring that up, the 9 endings. That's what this was this time around. Um, so it's so difficult trying to where to start, but I think it's pretty good to start with the Sept of Baelor
Yeah,
and the trial.
it dominates the first half of the episode or so.
So yeah, it's trial day, and it's beautifully shot and edited with this heavy music, which I know you want to talk about.
It's just I've been really harsh on this season's music. I thought for the
Mhm.
first at least half the season there was almost no real original stuff for any of the real emotional beats. It was all just recycled themes to, and you didn't care because of the moment. You cared because the music you had a previous attachment to.
Mhm.
But this lovely mournful piano over the top was just fantastic. And where it cuts out, I won't say just yet, but it cuts out
Yeah.
at a specific moment, and it's just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the scene in The Godfather when all the bad stuff's happening at the baptism or the christening, like, because it keeps intercutting in between stuff that's happening in the sept and stuff that's happening under the sept.
Yeah.
So I just, anytime a movie does that, it always stands out to me. But basically, the trial starts and Cersei's not there. And they notice, because she's supposed to be on trial. And so Loras comes up first and he just grumbles. Like,
See, this is one of my complaints with the episode. I feel like
uh
it's not just this episode, but
Yeah.
this season as a whole, Loras has been wasted.
yep. Like, up to this point, we're told that he's this knight and he's a strong character. And, but nothing in this season suggests, like, had his head shaved and been kept in, like, a dungeon.
Yeah, we
So
haven't
he
even
hasn't
seen
been
him
given
really.
anything to do. So, like, but yeah, he just cracks, and Marjorie tries to go to him, but the High Sparrow stops her, and he joins the Faith Militant, and they carve one of those stupid stars on his forehead.
Do you know what? It really struck me in that scene
Hmm.
that how amazingly manipulative the High Sparrow is, because
Yep.
he never did it to himself.
Right?
He
Yeah.
his head is perfectly fine. There are no
Yeah.
scars there, but every single one of the followers,
Yeah. Well,
devious bastard.
being that they're a branch, I can see why, but it's also like, would you follow a dude that's got a head tattoo? I mean, that's kind of the Charlie Manson rule, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
once they have a tattoo on their forehead, you don't listen to them no more. So, but yeah, no, that is a really good point. It's like, hey, where's yours?
yeah.
So, and yeah, it was like I want to be sad for Loris just because I kind of wanted to see him do the trial by combat, you know. And,
Yeah,
and
it's the
as
only
we
way
can
you could have
state,
stood the chance, though.
yeah, and as we can state, he probably wouldn't have done as well. But at least go out on your feet, you know.
He could have gone down as the knight that he was instead of
Ex-
this thing in rags.
Exactly, and all his dignity's gone, and oh man. So as this is going on, Marjorie's basically like, "Hey, where's Cersei? She needs to be here." The High Sparrow's like, "Don't worry, we'll find her." And he
Is
sends
that
Lancel,
yeah,
right?
yeah? And this is the thing, though. He's like, well, she don't come. She'll just get tried anyway. We'll just do it without her. He's
Yeah.
so nonchalant about it. He's
Yeah.
so cocky.
Well, exactly, because he's, all in and he thinks he's got, to use a poker term, he's got all his cards on the table and she still hasn't showed hers. And
Yeah.
he's confident he's won. And so they send Lancel and he starts, he, I, remind me, because this, again, so dense. He goes to her room and she's not where she's supposed to be, right?
Yeah. No. Does he? They gets distracted by the kids.
That's what I thought. Again, so um, the kids who are working for Qyburn, who's now the Master of Whispers, taking over for Varys, and not only do they lure Lancel away, but his name was Pycelle, who was the former Great Sept that he's a thing for prostitutes,
Yeah.
and that's who the High Sparrow replaced. But basically, he lures him into the chambers, and all his little birds, i.e., the kids, stab Pycelle to death.
Yeah. It's a great moment there with the music as well because it's like there's this lovely choir and it's like proper like building and building, and it just doesn't stop until
Yeah,
after the scene cuts away from him being stabbed, and it's just
yeah.
fantastic.
And it's one of those moments where it's gratuitous, but I understand why. Because it's
Yeah.
to show you how savage this plan is.
Yeah.
And this is not even the worst that's yet to come. And so Lancel, as he's looking for her, gets distracted by one of these kids and he starts following him down into the crypts. At the same time, bad move on me, Tommen, Joffrey's younger brother, right? The nice Lannister boy. So he's not a Baratheon. Um, he's up in his keep, and he's staring out at the Sept, and he goes to leave, and Sir Robert Strong shows up, i.e., Frankenmountain, and prevents him from leaving.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I'm the king. Move." And he's not moving. And what's this kid supposed to do? There's a
Yeah.
giant undead creature.
You
You
know,
know,
like you can give Tom and shit for being malleable
yeah,
and
yeah,
manipulated easily, but what the hell's he supposed to do against that?
yeah. And he stays in his quarters, and it cuts back to Lancel, who stumbles across the store of wildfire
Yeah.
that the Mad King had stashed under, of course, the Sept of Baelor, where the trials are still ongoing. And Marjorie now realizes something's afoot and
Yeah.
tries to get everybody out. The High Sparrows, nah, we're gonna stay here. I know your tricks. You're up to something.
I love that she's the only one that like cottons on though, because she's
Yeah,
consistently been shown to be incredibly smart,
yeah,
and she resisted the High Sparrow and let him think that he'd won and
yeah,
got out of it pretty much free.
yeah. I mean,
And
she had a fake religious lessons, but if that's all you have to do to get out, then that's fine. But it's so heartbreaking that she's trying to get these people out, and the High Sparrow's just not listening.
I know it's because we can see what's coming,
Yeah,
and it's just there's just nothing she can do.
and her dad Mace is there. Basically, anyone who's anyone from House Tyrell, because Loras was on trial, except for Grandma Olenna,
Yeah,
who had made it out. But basically the who's who of King's Landing is here.
pretty much, except Cersei and
Tommen,
Tommen because she wouldn't let him essentially.
right? And Lancel can't stop the candle melting into the wildfire, and it ignites.
And that, as the flame, you see it catch on the wildfire. That's the moment the music just drops out completely,
Yep.
and it is just so perfectly done.
And you see this the whole set go up, and Tommen's watching, and it's done with these beautiful green flames,
Yeah,
and just we haven't seen anything like this. Like we had seen wildfire before, but not at this level.
yeah. Because last time we saw it, it was out at sea.
Yeah, the Blackwater.
Yeah, and it was effective and
Hmm.
scary, but there was no buildings of stone
Yeah,
from hundreds of years old just exploding everywhere.
right.
It's
And
completely different.
And it doesn't just affect the people in the Sept. The Sept explodes and it gets the neighboring
Yeah.
communities, and you see people running around, and it's just chaos. And Tommen sees this from his perch, and there's nothing he can do about it. He's a king that basically had let this happen.
Yeah, his wife's just been killed, and he knows that. I'm pretty sure he knows it was his mother.
Yeah, because why else wouldn't he be there?
Yeah, and he knows that Robert Strong was hers,
So,
basically.
yeah. So that was pretty tragic because I was a big fan of Marjorie from the start. I mean, I bitch about Littlefinger and how he plays his games, but Marjorie seemed to be more. She wasn't about power. She was more about status.
And the difference is she does it with charm.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, yes, she wanted to be queen, but because she comes from a high family as it is already, she doesn't want all the trappings. She just wants people to know that she was queen.
Yeah.
And that's where she had done, the ride out into the King's Landing to be with the people
The charity acts and all that.
and
Yeah.
all of that. And she had jumped from Renly to Joffrey to Tommen. Like, she was doing what she had to. And she's just gone. And sometimes it's how life works. And all of this plan goes for nothing when there's a crazy bitch with wildfire. And I say bitch because Cersei is the queen. I don't want to say it again, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's the only word that can describe
Yeah.
her for
It's
this. Like,
just
she was willing to sacrifice all those people and King's Landing itself, basically. Because who knew? Like, yeah, they'd found the wildfire, but they didn't know if there was any other stores.
yeah, that could have spread easily.
Yeah, and she's gonna burn King's Landing down around her because she doesn't get her way.
It was just a petty revenge, basically.
Yeah, who she put into power was the High Sparrow
Yeah.
for petty revenge for her dad trying to make her marry Loras.
Yeah.
So it's just, oh man, she's just a spider weaving a tangled web. But so to go from that tragedy, we move up to Winterfell, where it's a bit happier. Davos finally confronts Melisandre about Shireen,
Yeah.
and the actor Lane Cunningham, like, he brings it in these quiet moments, and like, he's, to me, he's kind of like Alfred or Michael Caine's Alfred, where he
Yeah.
doesn't say a lot, but when he does, you should listen.
It's the way he carries himself.
Hmm.
He's got like he's this lowborn, but he carries himself with the nobility of all these
Yeah,
others, and he earns the title of knight more than most of the others
yeah,
that we see.
exactly. And so to see him lose his shit the way that he does
It's
on
kind of
Melisandre,
heartbreaking, isn't it?
yeah, because you could tell this is a guy that keeps himself poised. He's a knight. He's a captain. He knows what it's like to be in command and to keep himself, and the fact that he can't, because this was basically his only family
Yeah,
that he had, at least up there. He lost his son at the Battle of the Blackwater, right?
yeah. I think he'd lost
Supporting,
others before that.
yeah, because in support of Stannis. So when he
Yeah,
finds this out, and he does this in front of John, which is another thing because that's his, his commander, his
mm.
lord, and basically Melisandre tries to cover it up. Was like, well, the mom and dad knew it was coming; they were fine with it. I'm just doing for the Lord of Light, and for the first time, someone in the show calls out the Lord of Light for being kind of bullshit and not being a good like
Yeah,
influence. So that's with the Brotherhood without banners kind of on their way up there. It's interesting to hear that because they're all about R'hllor.
yeah. It's one of those things where you know he's the one against the White Walkers. Essentially, he is the fire
Mm.
versus the ice.
Right,
But do the ends justify the means? That's kind of the
right,
question it's starting to gnaw at here.
right. Which, as we can tell, the only powers they have is to raise people. For all we know, the blood magic didn't really work because it didn't help. It didn't help Stannis. It only did in that way. Oh,
Bless you.
Gesundheit. Um, but it only helped Stannis in the way that Robb and Joffrey and Balon were names on that list, right?
Yeah, they happened to die by circumstances nothing to do. That could have been a coincidence.
Exactly. Well, and Balon didn't even die till this season.
Yeah. The only other thing I will question is the shadow baby though.
Yeah. Well, that dark magic. We've seen
Yeah.
dragons and stuff. I mean, dark magic versus an entire faith is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That stuff can be debated. But yeah, so it's interesting to see where that goes because Davos wants to execute Melisandre, but he's like, I don't know, she can be useful. Like, so he kind
John's
of,
like he's like, well, she did bring me back.
yeah. So there's some power there. So he sends her on her way, exiles her, and
South looks
says,
interesting. So where do we think
yeah,
we're gonna where do you think she's gonna end up?
I think she's gonna meet up with Thoros and
Mm,
those guys, and
that
she's
was
gonna
that was my
wait it
first
out.
thought, but they're heading north and she can't
Yeah,
go north. So I
right.
thought maybe not. Maybe she'll bypass them.
Yeah. I mean, River runs down south, and Arya, which who we'll get to in a few, she's down
Yeah,
there,
yeah. I was
and
about to
that
ask who's holding River Run now then.
it's still the Tullys, but we'll get there. Let's not jump because that's one of the key moments.
Yeah,
Um, so she gets exiled, and we get a scene between Jon and Sansa, which we had this tension from last week's episode to where how come she didn't tell him about the Knights of the Vale, and how come he didn't take her advice on Ramsay when she knows him better than anyone, and it kind of squashes that tension because they actually put it all aside to do what's best for the North.
yeah. Something certain, real life political
would be nice,
could
wouldn't it?
could follow that right now. Be
Yeah,
great.
yeah. And John warns her about Littlefinger, and she's already onto him because he points out, he sold you to the Boltons. She goes, I'm very well aware.
Yeah.
I know his games. Although I think, does she know it as well?
I think she thinks she knows it, but
Yeah. No one knows Littlefinger
no.
except for
Although
Littlefinger.
he does open up to her, but even that I'm doubting whether it's real or not.
Yeah. Like, I don't believe that. So they go to that Godswood where the that had been, we'd seen it earlier in Winterfell. It's kind of what Winterfell is kind of built around. And that's where Littlefinger and Sansa have a talk. And that he basically says his ultimate goal is to sit on the Iron Throne
Yeah.
with Sansa at his side.
That's
And
that's where I start to doubt him. It's like,
yeah, bro, come on, man. Like, just because you can't have mom doesn't mean you go for the kid.
yeah, yeah, pretty
So,
much.
and you wouldn't have sold her out to some psychopaths if that's really what you felt, right? He
He,
could have kept her down in the Vale,
yeah,
like,
surely he wouldn't risk it.
yeah. So that's what makes me kind of think his plan's a little crumbling because of John. Is John's the unknown variable
Yeah, it's
in
something
this
because he
now?
he in his plan he'd counted on him being away at the Night's Watch.
Yep,
Him being here changes things all for him, and
yep,
it's definitely interesting to see how that's played out already.
yeah. And so John calls, well, John and Sansa, because they're kind of a team right now. And they get all the Northern Lords and the Knights of the Vale and the Wildlings, and they're like, hey, we got a bigger thing coming. And right before this had happened, a white raven was sent from the Citadel, bearing that winter is finally here.
Been a long time coming.
And here's my question. Is winter really coming, or is winter just the White Walkers? Are they one and the same? Because the constant winter is coming, the Stark words.
I think it's
I
both. It's meant to
Okay.
be one a reminder that the White Walkers are coming back,
Mm,
and they will come, but also winter is coming. Like just be prepared essentially, because winter
right,
could come at any moment, and you got to be ready to last out that shit if it goes for years.
right. And so they were in the midst of a long summer or autumn, however their weird seasons work on this world.
Yeah, fuck
So,
knows.
but it was a nice moment for John and Sansa for winter to finally come, which is something their dad had always said. Which again, more on that later. Um, Oh God, this episode is so packed. I
There's
can't get over.
so much. I'm struggling to keep it all straight in my head here.
Yeah, and they have all this, and basically the Northern Lords and the Knights of the Vale don't want to fight with the Wildlings, but the Wildlings are like, hey, we don't want to be here any more than you want us to be here. If we weren't running, we would have stayed where we were. And we actually had it kind of nice. And they all kind of come to an agreement that they will help each other because the bigger threat's coming. And as they're squabbling, good old Lyanna Mormont,
Moment of the episode right here for me.
the little lady, she starts shaming all these old men. Like,
Yeah.
these guys could be her grandfather. And they didn't, for not doing anything when Jon called. She goes, I answered the call. And you guys hit out. Like, and so they all listen to this little girl and they look at Jon, who's gone from steward of the Night's Watch to Lord Commander to now, a battle-winning leader,
Yeah.
right? And they realize, oh man, this dude's climbed the ladder, and he's proven his worth by retaking Winterfell. And so the Northern Lords, the Knights of the Vale, and the Wildlings all declare Jon the king of the North, despite him being a bastard, because Ned Stark's blood runs through his veins.
That's her exact words. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is why you should do it. And it's such a great scene. They call him the White Wolf.
Oh, yeah. And then the Winterfell theme finally comes back in for the first time in seasons, I think.
Yeah.
A full rendition of it, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah. And so, but Littlefinger's looking over at Sansa, because technically, him being a bastard, that should be hers. And again, that's the wrench in the plan. But I think, again, all the tension, Sansa's learned just to put it up. And we're going to deal with this as it should be.
See, I'm torn. I think part of her is going to scheme. I think she's essentially been infected by Littlefinger. She's always going to be a schemer now. Mm-hmm. And I just hope that she uses that for the benefit of the both of them together rather than against him.
And that's what I think too, because the Starks have been the strongest family together. So I would hate for Littlefinger to come, in between them.
He's going to try hard, though.
Oh, of course he is. I wouldn't expect anything less.
No.
But yeah, so we have a new king in the north, the White Wolf, Jon Snow, or Jon Stark, whatever. Yeah, so Jon's king in the north, and he's the White Wolf, Jon Snow, but is he Jon Snow or Jon Stark?
It's interesting because they say the North remembers and the North kneels to the king in the North, and that they must be a Stark.
Right.
But then they straight up call him Jon Snow straight after.
Right.
So they're still acknowledging he's a bastard, which kind of puts him at a bit of a disadvantaged position, I think.
I do too, but if he's king in the North, can he just declare himself a Stark?
That's a good point.
Like,
that's a very good point. He should be able to, because it takes a royal pardon. So
right. And he's royal now because remember Stannis offered to make him a Stark, and Stannis was king of the throne despite not having it. Well, yeah, but he had the best claim. So
he had the claim, sure, but he didn't have the throne.
Right. So, and at that same time, Tommen or Joffrey, my timeline gets mixed up, had made Ramsay a Bolton. So
yeah, I think
he was a Snow when we first met him.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, to move on to not spend too much time there, we head to the twins, where they those idiots. The phrase, good lord, they're dumb.
They are, but I love all the phrase tenacity.
Yes, well, because he's gonna keep coming until the Lannisters show up to do it for him.
He pretty much says it in this scene with Jaime, doesn't he?
Yeah. And he goes, "Why do I have to do stuff when the Lannisters are around?"
Yeah.
And that's kind of his thing. He's only got power because he has the bridges.
Yeah, but he knows that. He's aware of that. Like he goes to Jaime. Jaime asks him, "When have you ever fought in battles? Have you ever done this?"
Yeah.
He goes, "I wanted River Run. I got River Run. Victory." It's like, he's right. He did it without having to do anything himself except sit there and do nothing, essentially.
Yeah, well, and he takes credit for killing Rob. You know, when he was king in the North for the Red Wedding.
Nah, he's allowed credit for that. He did do that.
Yeah, but still, that was more the Boltons having his back, I
Yeah,
would say, than the
it depends.
phrase.
Potentially just to have the numbers to outnumber their army,
Yeah,
but it was still like his house, and he
yeah,
organized it to a degree.
I guess. But he's having a party, and that's where Jamie reminds him that the only reason you got all this stuff is because of us. So keep that in mind.
Yeah,
And Jamie rides off because he's done his duty, and
gives them a
he's heading back to
bit
King's
of a
Landing.
threat first, though. He's like, well,
Yeah,
people aren't afraid of the phrase; they're afraid of the
right.
Lannisters. What happens if we decide that coming up and rescuing you isn't just worth it and keep it for ourselves?
Yeah, because every time we take River Run, you lose it right again.
Hmm. Every time.
So every time. But yeah, so Walter is he needs his sons to celebrate, and he's looking where they are, and his servant brings him his pie that he's gonna have for a celebration at lunch.
Looks good.
Yeah, it looks fine. Got nice, looks like phyllo dough at the top, and it's layered. And the servant reveals to him that, oh yeah, the sons are around. You're looking at them, and it looks like old Walter Frey's finally lost it.
It took me a second to cotton on because I genuinely thought he was just looking
Yeah,
around everyone. We were seeing he had
yeah,
lost it, and he was just imagining no one was there.
yeah. And he looks closer at his pie, and there's fingers in it, and his sons were baked into the pie. And the servant pulls off one of the faceless man masks, and it's Arya Stark. It's not no one.
No, it's not.
And what does she do, Connor?
She very proudly declares that she is Arya Stark, and then proceeds to slash his throat.
With a $1 million smile
Yeah.
across her face. So that's one name off her list.
I really hope season 7 for Arya is just her tracking down her hit list, basically. I mean, well, actually, who's left on it?
Cersei.
Is it just Cersei now?
Yeah, it was Cersei, Meryn Trant,
The Hound,
Tywin, the Hound,
Walder Frey.
and yeah,
No, you're right. It is just Cersei, isn't it?
it's just Cersei. Yeah, so
That's her. Well, that's her mission for the season then.
yes, and so I was cooking dinner at the time, and I very rarely do that, but I was starving, and I had to rewind it because I had heard Arya Stark and turned around and yelled out, "Oh hell yes!" Because I was not expecting that at all.
It was a pretty great moment. Although it once again begs the question of what is going on with the pacing of how quick people travel.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get to that
Yeah, we are. But this in
because
contrast makes it even more like
yeah,
she just left.
yeah. Well, also the time too, because we had seen the time that John was dead to Cersei's hair growing back.
Yeah.
That was another thing. So I'm just gonna cop a page from Doctor Who and say timey wimey.
It's always a
You
good
know,
explanation.
yeah, right. So speaking of how quick people get places, we go down to Dorne, and Lady Olenna's there, which is massive because in the lore, Dorne and the Reach are constantly at war over lands that intersect, and just constantly they don't get along. And so the fact that the matriarch of the house that runs the Reach
Yeah.
is entertaining this basically rebel coup that
Actually, out of interest, is she now the head of House Tyrell? Like, because
yeah, well
Mace is
her
gone.
husband, yeah, her husband. I mean, she kind of always was. Mace was kind of
She,
a
she
figurehead.
she was, yeah, and she was always the real power. We know that, but
Yeah,
who officially is now? Is her husband still? He's dead, right?
basically, yeah, he died before.
Yeah.
We'd never seen him. Basically, House Tyrell's gone except for her, as
This
far as we know.
is again, it's another thing that highlights to me. This is the season of women.
Yep.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean
No.
it's a very noticeable trend with Daenerys, Yara, um, Lady Olenna,
Sansa. Yeah.
Sansa, Lyanna
Brienne.
Mormont.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's just like they're all significantly more powerful than they were.
At the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, so she meets with the Sand Snakes because they got rid of the prince or king, whoever he was, down there, and Vera shows up as they're talking, and Lady Olenna's great because she's just giving the Sand Snakes the business.
I love
Calling
it when she.
Obara. Uh,
Yeah,
what does she say though?
she can't remember her name. She's like, whatever, the first one, and then what are the others?
Well, she says she's built like a man,
Yeah, yeah. And then she's
and
like, sorry, my sister means right. She's like, don't you start, shut up. And then
yeah,
she looks at the other one. It's like, you got anything to say? And she goes to open her
yeah.
mouth. It's like, no, fucking thought
Well,
not.
and she also said the last time a member of the Tyrells was in Dorne, they were fed to like insects or snakes or whatever.
100 red scorpions.
100 red scorpions. There you go. And she goes, "Should I expect that from you after you've killed your own prince?"
Mm.
And yeah, so she's just giving it. But yeah, Varys shows up, greeting them by saying "fire and blood," which is the words of Targaryens.
Yeah.
And we know he's mixing it up. So yeah, this leads back to well, I guess we should go to Old Town first before we go back to King's Landing.
Yes, now the opposite end of the travel speed.
Yeah. So yeah, man, they left a while ago. Old Sam and Gilly.
Pretty much the start of the season.
Yeah, I think it was last season they left.
It might have
he
been
wasn't
last season,
there.
you're right.
He wasn't there when John got shanked.
Yeah, you're right.
Huh?
God
So-
damn, this has taken forever.
So the Ironborn can go all the way around the continent and get to Meereen and find Daenerys, and Daenerys can go across the Great Grass Sea, right, march into Meereen.
Varys has crossed the sea at least 4 or 5 times this season.
Yeah,
At least.
yeah. So, but yeah, so Sam and Gilly finally arrived in Old Town, and basically they go to meet to go in there, and the guy manning the doors is like, no women or children. So they go off to Old Town. He goes into the Citadel, and it's like a nerd's paradise. Like, this is George R. R. Martin's dream.
Yeah.
Because I always think that old George is his character is Sam.
Mm.
And
Chronicling the events.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so he gets access to the library, and he opens it up, and it's just floors and floors of books.
I love the music here because it's like it starts with this harp, which is obviously has connotations of being like old, majestic, but then the doors open, it pans up, and all these strings just swell in, and it's one of the most majestic pieces of music in the show, and it's just for a library.
Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, so good. But yeah, and he's just taken aback because he's got some work to do. He's going to be earning those rings on the chain. Until your old dad comes and wants to know where the sword is. So, we'll find that out.
I mean, I'm still a little bit annoyed about this plot overall.
Yeah.
It's taken far too long to do nothing. I mean, it's literally taken more than a season for only really 2 scenes that we needed. The one with his family, getting the sword, because I'm sure that's going to pay off later, and him reaching Old Town, which is kind of the end of this part of his journey.
Mm-hmm.
This should not have taken as long as it did, especially with everyone fast traveling so much.
Yeah, I mean, we got more out of the Hound, who was resuscitated.
And that wasn't even until like episode 7?
Yeah, and his story moved quicker than this one, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. It's not an A story, so I'm not too worried about it. But he needs to learn how to make that Valerian steel because they're gonna need it.
Yeah.
Up north. So, and we also see Bran. Because speaking of going back up north, he's with Uncle Benjen near the wall, and basically he says that the wall's magic protection means that he can't pass because he's half White Walker. He's a day walker, basically.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that annoyed me. I mean, I don't think I was on the review where where Benjen was revealed.
Yeah.
but that annoyed me at the time because I don't think it was necessary to reveal who he was. Could have left it as a mystery.
Yeah.
And all this did, if all he was going to do was, because we saw him in that one episode, he saved them. They had the one chat where he revealed himself, and then we had this where he dropped him off and he pissed off again. Could have quite easily done that without revealing who he was.
Yeah, and I think it would have meant more if he's the outlet there, because he's basically the three-eyed raven now. Like,
Yeah.
not in terms of magic, but in Beyond the Wall, he's holding it down. And yeah, I mean, it would have been cool for the White Walkers to be coming, and he's the one that warns them. Maybe sacrifices himself. That's how you learn the wall. Will prevent him. Which means now too that the White Walkers can't make it past the wall.
No, you're wrong. They can.
How?
Because they marked Bran, and that's how they got in at the grove at the top. When they touched him in the vision, and then they breached that magic.
Right.
They've now he's crossed the wall. They can cross through as well.
I only said that because I was setting up that they're not going to go over it or on it. They're going to go through it. So that maybe the wall was coming down.
Yeah, perhaps, but I still think now that they can cross through thanks to that.
That's right. I forgot. That's a little Voldemort magic there from Harry Potter.
Pretty much.
Where they use the blood and now he can touch him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he leaves him there, and Mira helps Bran to Weirwood Tree, where he goes back to the Tower of Joy with his dad. And finally, we get to see what's up there.
So this scene, I'm torn on this scene as well. I love it and I hate it.
Okay, so I'll go through it, then you can tell me why you hate it, and then you'll tell me why you loved it.
Sure.
So we see young Eddard. He goes up there, and his sister Lyanna is up there. And she's hemorrhaging from childbirth. She's just covered in blood. And Ned, I keep wanting to call him John, but I don't know why. But Ned...
I'll tell you why. It's because he doesn't have that very heavy Sheffield accent of Sean Bean.
Yeah, that could be why.
It just doesn't. It doesn't feel like Ned without that Sheffield accent.
That's right. It is more like wherever John's from. What's his name?
Kit Harington.
Kit Harington, there you go. Wherever he's from, I feel like this actor that's playing young Ned, they're from the same neck of the woods.
Yeah, it could be.
And so, but anyways, he's up there, and he's trying to piece us all together. And there's, a bunch of whispers, and that's where she says her famous, "Promise me, Ned. Promise me." He can't find out. And we see a baby, which, as soon as that happens, as if, to not confuse the viewers who don't know, that aren't in the know, it fades into a still, well, not a real still image, but an image of Jon Snow up in Winterfell. So why'd you hate this scene?
Well, okay. I don't know why they obscured part of her words, because we hear her say, what we presume is obscured is the father's name. But then she says, "Robert will kill him. You know he will." Right. And we hear that, so it's pretty clear that he's a Targaryen. Just from that, because why else? So I don't understand why they felt the need to obscure it if they were going to give us that part. So that kind of annoys me a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that. I think if they were just going for dramatic effect.
Sure, but it feels cheap if you're gonna go that route. Keep the secret a little bit longer. No, don't. Or at least be a little bit more subtle with what you do let us hear.
Yeah. See, I didn't hear the Robert part. I just heard he'll kill him. You know he will.
She definitely said Robert will kill him, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, then I can definitely see that. Because without the Robert, it could have been anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely see that. But for that scene, we get confirmation that he's not a bastard. I mean, he is in a sense, but not Ned Stark's bastard.
No. But the other part that annoyed me is it was a lingering suspicion I had about Bran's power set, and this kind of confirmed it, that his entire role in the show now is to be an exposition, a way of showing exposition to the audience, and I fucking hate that.
He's Branopedia, basically.
Yeah, because he can't interact. He can interact, but he can't change anything, because anything he changes, we've already seen the effects of.
Right.
So he can't do anything. he can just show us things, which is great. We want to learn things, but it kind of
Yeah.
feels like a really cheap way of doing this reveal to me.
Yeah, and I definitely think this is how we see stuff from the past next season.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure we're gonna get into the whole Rhaegar story because we've gotten bits and pieces from it.
Yeah.
But I think we'll definitely see the tournament uh, where it's where he meets Lyanna and
Yeah,
all
I
that.
think we'll see plenty with the Mad King too.
Yeah,
But this is my concern. Like, while I really want to see this,
yeah,
I don't like it at the expense of it being Bran's not a character anymore. He's just a plot device to show us these things, for them to have an excuse to have flashbacks now.
well, and I think too that he might be instrumental into helping bring down the Walkers.
Sure, he can share the information,
Yeah,
but
but other than that, he doesn't have much to do.
yeah,
But that's been kind of his character from the beginning. I mean, he had to get up to the tree, and that's all he had to do. And now he's
and
been to the tree.
that's what annoys me though. I thought, all right, he's going to get to the tree, he's going to
Mhm.
discover who he is, what he can do, and then he can actually take an active role. But he can't. He's still a passive role. He's still just a watcher, and he's just a funnel for us.
Right?
And it just infuriates me.
Yeah, yeah. I was just happy to have the Tower of Joy scene finally because I got
That's
very
the thing. I like the
yeah,
scene. I like the information. I like the implications. I just hate the fact that it is done by proxy
yeah,
through Bran because it kind of cheapens that for me.
right. I mean, but how else would you do it? And I took off on a tangent. Like you can't just start, you know, flashbacking.
No, you can't do it through flashbacks. That's the thing. You have to do it another way, which is why I think it's a cheap get out of jail thing because they're like, well, we don't know another way to write it, so let's do it
Right?
this way.
That's true. Yeah, had it been me, and I usually don't do this, Monday morning quarterback of the writers, but we still have yet to meet Howland Reed, and now Brand's back on the other side of the wall,
Yeah.
and that's Mira's dad. So he was the only other person that was there.
Yeah, we could have had him share some knowledge. That's the sort of thing I
Right.
mean. Like that, there are ways you could do it, which wouldn't feel quite as cheap to me.
True.
That said, I really like the implications because, like we mentioned earlier, Lyanna Mormont specifically says
Yep.
Ned Stark's blood runs in his veins, which we know it doesn't.
No, Stark blood does.
Stark
Not
blood does,
Ned's.
but not Ned.
Right.
That's the thing. She doesn't say Stark blood. She specifically
Right.
says Ned Stark's blood.
Right.
So the question is, when they inevitably all find out, because Bran will share it at some point,
Right.
do they all turn on him and denounce
See,
him?
I say I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can use that because he is a Stark through and through. There's the only thing Targaryen in him is his blood.
Sure, but considering he was essentially elected on his blood, I mean, his actions too, sure,
Yeah.
but
So
they needed the Stark figurehead, and
if they're that okay to do it with a bastard, then I
they
think they'll
might
be
get
that
away with it.
okay.
But part of me does have to wonder if Littlefinger or potentially even Sansa will be the one to use this information to
Well,
mess things
Littlefinger's
up
the
a
guy
little.
that he's the guy that got this boat rolling
Yeah,
in the crypts last season with Sansa. He knows more
he
than he's
definitely
like
does. He always does. That's the thing with
right.
Littlefinger. You always have to
So
assume he knows everything.
right. So we'll see with that. And we'll jump back to King's Landing because we split it up into chunks for the aftermath of the Sept of Baelor.
Yeah.
And basically, Tommen sees this, puts two and two together that it's his mom, and that he can't do anything about it. And I guess has no other choice, and takes a swan dive out the window,
Yep.
effectively ending his kingship.
Pretty effectively, might I add.
Yeah.
Like, it is
Yeah.
very effectively done.
Yeah. And it confirms the prophecy that we were told about last season about Cersei outliving her children, which she does. And basically, without any kids now, she has no Fs left to give.
Yeah, and it is interesting because obviously the line of succession. So,
Yeah.
Robert, kids,
Right?
even if you assume they're true-born and not, whatever. Then his
Bastards.
brothers, but they're gone.
Right?
So that literally just leaves his wife.
Well, and the queen, right? The king's wife.
Yeah, she was already
For her
gone.
whole
earlier.
family.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, they're all out, but Right, Kevin Lannister. I even forgot the Hand of the King was in there. Her
Yeah,
own uncle. Like,
yeah.
she's burned, literally burned everything.
She wanted absolutely no challenges.
Right. So we get introduced to this by the Septa that had done the shaming of Cersei.
Yeah.
Cersei's got her tied to a table and basically waterboards her with wine while yelling shame at her, and then has the mountain come in, and the undertones aren't nice.
No, they're not. And
So
he finally
yeah,
takes off his helmet.
yeah, which I'm so glad that it was Gregor and not the head of Robert or Joffrey.
Yeah, you say that, but it could have been anyone. They changed the actor for the mountain so many
Yeah,
times that
yeah,
it wouldn't have mattered who was under the helmet at this point.
yeah. But I'm glad they didn't do something cheesy like that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that was good. But so yeah, so she basically now is the queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and we see her. What's that called when they put someone
Coronation.
up? Coronation. And she's sitting on the Iron Throne, and as it's happening, in comes Jamie,
Mm.
and he's completely shocked to see everything there, and sees all the chaos. And you have to assume that he thought, well, what's Cersei been up to,
Yeah,
right?
clearly.
Right. And she makes Qyburn her hand, and he's standing there with the Franken Mountain on the Iron Throne, and Jamie just looks at her, and he's called the Kingslayer, but that face, he looks like he might have a prefix change.
Yeah, I was thinking that. See, now I'm torn. Like, who killed Cersei? Jamie? Ah, yeah. Or Daenerys?
Yeah, it's
I
well, and here's the thing too. So in all of this, Cersei has put herself in a circle because yes, she has the Westerlands, which is the Lannister lands, because she's now the last Lannister that can hold title, right? Because Jamie can't, being in the King's Guard, and Tyrion's gone.
yeah, Lancel's gone. Kevin's gone.
Kevin,
Yeah,
so
Castle Rock is just hers.
it's hers, and then she has all the Crown lands, being the Queen, and she has all the Storm lands where the Baratheons rule, because there's none of them left. So she has this big middle chunk of Westeros.
Yeah.
But she no longer has the Reach. She no longer has Dorne. She no longer has the Vale, the Riverlands, or the North.
Yeah, she's in a bit of a
Yeah,
situation that many would like to call being fucked.
yeah. There you go. She's basically the Queen of Ashes right now,
Yeah.
because as this is going on, we go over to Marine, and Daenerys has a talk with Tyrion, and she makes him her hand because he showed in her absence that he's actually really good at this stuff,
Yeah.
you know. And
And she
daughter,
showed
he kind
that
of
she's willing to take his advice
right
because we get it with what's his name?
with Dario,
Dario, thank you.
yeah.
Where she
So
basically goes, "No, fuck you. You can't come to Westeros. I need to be able to marry if I need to."
right, and she's like, I really like you, but like you're gonna mess up this whole Queen thing for me. Which Tyrion's not wrong, but I don't think making a jilted lover that's badass that led the Dothraki into battle when he's not one himself, right?
Yeah, not a good move.
Not the greatest, but still, I mean Tyrion has a point that Daenerys can go over there and marry into whatever family really she wants to solidify power.
She's gonna have to. Like,
Yeah, because it is split now. Because you do have, like I was just saying, you have the Vale in the North allied, you have the Reach and Dorne allied. It's almost three separate kingdoms.
that's so. Who's got Riverrun now? Because obviously the
So
phrase is it still in the phrase possession?
yeah, but who's left of the phrase?
That's what I'm thinking. What Frey is there?
So you have Edmure Tully, who turned it over, remember?
Yeah,
and the
he's
Blackfish died, it could always go back to him.
yeah. I mean, Walder Frey made a point of reminding us that he was still alive.
Yep.
Very, very clearly was saying he
Yep.
couldn't kill him.
Right.
So sure, Edmure, fat lot of good he'll
So
do, but you know,
yeah, I mean it's in disarray because of Arya, so they're not going to be able to do much.
yeah,
So it's completely unstable. And now you have Daenerys, who's single and ready to mingle, based off of Tyrion, and we get this really awesome shot of her armada, which has ships from Dorne, Tyrell, the Ironborn,
it's pretty fucking great.
and they're sailing. And there's this big wide shot that just shows miles and miles of ships
There is.
in the distance.
There's a shot I loved
And
before that though.
which one?
It's just I think it was almost a CGI saving shot because you just see the shadow of the dragon go over,
Yeah.
and you just hear the wings, but you don't see it at first.
Yeah,
And I
right.
honestly think that was more powerful than the next shot where you actually see them.
Yeah, well, I didn't even mention the dragons. She has 3 dragons
Yeah,
that are under her command,
fully grown at this point.
right? And Westerosi allies. She has the Unsullied
Yeah,
and the Dothraki.
but she's left behind the second sons at this point.
Yes. So, wait, which ones were the second sons?
Those are Dario's people.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, because
She left
you
them
know,
there in Marine to keep the peace, didn't she?
to keep the peace, right? So Dario's, he's not that jilted, I'm sure, because he gets that city and
Yeah.
whatnot. So, but yeah, so the Greyjoys, Dorne, Tyrell, Targaryen.
Man,
It's
Varys
even-
did one hell of a job.
Yes, he did. That's why he got paid the money, right? Like,
Damn right.
so. But yeah, and that's where this season ends. So, I gotta say, this is probably the best finale of the show. I mean, I'd have to go back and rewatch, the other 5, but it's definitely better than last year's.
That's not hard.
Yeah. So, but I gotta say, this was everything gets wrapped up in a nice little bow for next season.
Yeah, it was really, like I said, I've had some little issues here and there, but
Yeah.
not massive, nothing that detracts from the episode overall. It was
Yeah.
very good.
Right.
Does leave with a few questions, like so if someone kills Cersei before Daenerys comes over with
Mhm.
her claim,
Huh?
what happens to the line of succession? Because there's nowhere for it to go
Kingsmoot.
on. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
That's-
how do they nominate a new leader? Like, what house does it come from? Before
right.
this is assuming this happens before Daenerys comes over with her claim,
Huh?
because all the other claimants to the throne are gone.
Right.
She has no family at all left to send it to.
Right.
What the hell
Except for-
happens?
Except for Jamie. I mean, but he's
But
Kingsguard.
he can't take.
He can't do anything. So yeah, she's again. Cersei thinks that she's so great at scheming, but she only puts herself into a deeper hole. This is just like the Faith Militant all over again.
Yeah.
So,
Oh man, this is gonna be fun.
yep. So next season, and we know that it's going to be a truncated season. So less episodes, but they're all going to be longer. So,
It's fine. It worked very well for this episode. I mean, I
Yeah.
admit at first when I heard it was 20 minutes longer, I groaned a little bit because this was at a point where I was a little bit more skeptical on the season.
Yeah.
But no, it won me over.
Yeah. Yep. Very good. The first opening sequence, and to have something like that happen in the 10th episode versus the ninth, very good.
Yeah.
Keep us on our toes as watchers, because we've become accustomed to the ninth episode.
Yeah, we get a little complacent when it comes to the last one.
Yep.
We just don't really expect that much.
Yep. So the fact that they put up a 9 or a 10, depending on how you grade. For me, it was a 10. I don't watch these, I watch them once, and then, if there's ones I do need to go back to, I go back and watch them. But this is definitely one that I'm looking forward to watching again. It was like a movie, basically.
It was.
In-
Well, it was very well directed.
Mhm.
The music was great. It's hard to fault it that much, besides my little things that I've said. But a lot of them relate to the season as a whole, anyway. Like,
Yeah.
but they're just highlighted more because we're at the end and they're still like that.
Mhm.
But
But yeah,
very
so
good.
the season as a whole, it raised from where it left last year. Last year was left a very bad taste, I think, in most people's mouths. So,
Five made me quit the show. Like,
oh, look at
I
that.
straight up stopped watching halfway through because I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, look at that.
And
In season six,
I was a bit shaky on it for a while, and it made me angry at times.
yeah,
But it's ended on a high note, and it's made me hopeful for
that's,
7.
but yeah, that's good entertainment though.
Yeah,
When it can make you do that. So, and it's kind of like what the Ironborn say: "What is dead may
may
never
never die.
die,
Yeah,
may rise stronger."
exactly.
So, look at that. But yeah, so I think that's gonna do it for us. We'll call Pete back in.
Yeah.
My God.
I told you, it's an all timer, man.
Alright, well, I guess that brings an end to the review, which lasted on the timer is over an hour. We'll see how that shapes up with the couple of edits that need to be made, but yeah, that's Game of Thrones. Let us know what you thought of the final and the season as a whole in the comments below, and like and subscribe and all that stuff. It helps us out a lot. Thanks for watching, guys. We will see you next time. Although, not for Game of Thrones, we will see you in like a year for that. Bye, guys.